Cattails 31 Pirate, come on, get away from the window. Lamb chops for dinner tonight. I waved the plate of tantalizing morsels in my cat's direction. At 16 pounds, Pirate had never said no to food before. In fact, I'd once found him in the den, rolled down on his spine, belly exposed and hind legs extended, purring to himself after a meal of filet mignon. This boy liked his food. Worried now, I went to pick him up and carry him to his plate. Something, I thought, had to be wrong. Before I hefted him, I pulled back the lacy curtains and looked outside. I didn't see anything. I set Pirate down in front of his dish. As soon as his forepaws touched the floor, he ran back to the window. Perplexed, I went outside. A tiny silver-striped head popped up from the center of the lyrope in my front planter. Reaching in, I picked up an adorable silver tabby with the biggest front paws I'd ever seen. I guessed her age at 6 months. I counted her toes. She had 6. 5 fully developed, a 6th in between the thumb and index finger. Yep, this kitten had mittens. I buried my face in her soft fur, and she began to purr. Okay, I murmured into her fur, let's see if you can get along with Pirate. I set her down just inside the door and braced myself. Pirate never wanted anything to do with any other cat. He was the only declawed cat I'd ever owned, and his outside wanderings were restricted to the end of a leash. Any cats with the nerve to invade his territory found themselves on the business end of his hiss. I really had no idea how this would work out. Pirate walked up to the kitten, sniffed her, bumped her shoulder, and pushed her toward the kitchen. Fascinated, I watched him show her his dish and sit next to her while she devoured his lamb chop bits. Clearly, love at first sight. Again, he walked up to her and bumped her shoulder. This time he led her around the house, pointing out such areas of interest as the litter box and the kibble and water bowls. Tour finished, he lay down next to her and began to groom her. It astounded me that Pirate had adopted this little girl. It frightened me too. Who knew what illnesses she had that could spread to Pirate? A trip to the vet for a checkup and a quick fix, and I brought my girl, now named Starlight, home. The vet gave her a clean bill of health. That night she began to bleed from the mouth. Devastated, I called the vet, sure the anesthesia tube had nicked her esophagus during surgery, and rushed her back. Her little mouth and tongue were completely blistered. The blisters were breaking and bleeding. They put her on life support and told me she had a congenital illness triggered by the surgery. Whether she lived or not depended on her willingness to eat on her own once they removed the feeding tube. They also warned me that, although she wouldn't be contagious, if she lived, I'd have to keep Pirate separate from her while she recovered. The vet suggested he might try to attack her while she was weak. I brought Starlight home 3 days later. I'd prepared a room just for her and made sure Pirate had no access. As soon as she returned, he pawed and meowed outside her door. I could hear her weak cries in response. Fearful Starlight couldn't withstand an attack, I was determined to keep them apart. On the second day I had her home, when I opened the door to feed her, Pirate shot in under my feet and raced for his little sister. He curled his body around her and began to groom her, covering her from head to toe with tender licks, and refused to budge when I tried to get him out of the room. Starlight, contentedly surrounded by cat fur, slept pressed against his ample stomach. Starlight fully recovered. The vet credited her quick recovery to Pirate's care. Love clearly conquered all. Pirate, it seemed, had signed on for sickness or health. 2 months later, in the middle of the night, Pirate suffered a seizure. Starlight woke me when it happened. She jumped on the bed and kept batting my face until I woke up and paid attention. I rushed him to the 24-hour vet. Pirate never recovered. I often wondered if he knew of his illness and chose Starlight to replace him so I wouldn't be alone. Starlight sat at the front door for 2 days, refusing to eat or drink. She slept curled at the base of the door and hissed at me every time I passed her. I had taken him out through the front door. Somehow, she held me responsible. Starlight is sitting on my lap as I write this. She just turned 12, and now weighs in at 16 healthy pounds. I have 2 other cats in the house, both boys, but Starlight refuses to give her heart to either one. She remains aloof and, I think, still in love with Pirate.